Welcome, ACSA family and friends, to Common Purpose, Uncommon Times. I'm Wes Smith, and as ever, honored to serve all of you. We had intended to give you a couple of weeks to get schools up and going, whatever that looks like in your environment. 100% virtual, hybrid. We know that there are a couple places in the state that have opened almost exclusively physically. But in any event, we wanted you to have some time and thought that your Mondays might be pretty busy. And then we were struck by all of these wildfires around the state. And we realized that many of you, and if not you, many of your colleagues are suffering greatly, as are your families and your students. Families, students, and staff who are already struggling with the impact of COVID-19, with the economic downturn, with rolling blackouts, and now this. And ACSA can't sit on the sidelines while you, your colleagues, your staffs, your students, and their families are struggling. And so we put together some resources, and we decided to come back tonight and to share some of those resources with you. In just a moment, I'm going to bring some experts in who have had quite a bit of experience, unfortunately for them, fortunately for all of you, with wildfires, providing resources for families, connecting folks, dealing with the state. And so they're going to be on tonight to give some practical solutions, some experience, some lessons learned, that if you aren't impacted by fires, but you know someone who is impacted by the wildfires, you can share these resources with them or point them in the direction of this broadcast so that they can see it. We record these. We cannot allow our members and their families, their families meaning their students and staff and communities, to suffer without providing some support. So that's what we're going to do tonight. By the way, many of you heard today that the template came out from CDE about attendance counting. There are a lot of questions, a lot of concerns around that. Later in the week, I know with our legislative lunch break, they'll be unpacking some of that. We'll also talk about that a little bit more in our next broadcast. We expect as well, as early as tomorrow, that we'll get some guidance on small group reopenings. So those of you that are trying to bring back students with severe disabilities, for example, or English language learners, some of your high poverty student subgroups, any subgroup, small group that you're trying to bring back if you're on the county monitoring list, there's going to be guidance. We've been waiting for it for weeks. We think it will be launched tomorrow. So we'll break that down as well later in the week and next week also. But tonight, we really want to focus on the impact of California's newest, this year anyway, variable to deal with, newest challenge that we're trying to reframe, and that is the wildfires. And so let me bring on ACSA staff first, because we at ACSA have for years been proactively reaching out during these crises to say, how can we support you? How can we help you? And wildfires have been one of the things we've done. Naj Alakan was on the call earlier, but his internet wasn't working really well. And we all understand that, right? If any of you had Zoom classrooms open today, you realize that Zoom nationally was problematic. It just wasn't working. My son was taking his high school classes, and it didn't work so well. In any event, we understand technology. We can sympathize. We couldn't get Naj on tonight. Let me just say that our communications team can provide crisis communication throughout the wildfires to your communities. We can help you message things, alert folks. We're here to help craft messages. We have templates for that. So we can provide crisis communication for you. Reach out to ACSA for that support. We also have in member services a variety of supports that we provide, and I'll let the team speak to that. Again, we've had way too much experience over the last 7 years doing this. The good news is for you and for our members is we do have that experience. And so, Margarita, why don't you share some of the things that member services can provide and how folks can get a hold of you and your team if they're in need?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Wes. My name is Margarita Cuizon Armelino. I'm the Senior Director of Member Services for those that don't know me. And like Wes said, unfortunately, we have a lot of experience now, at least 6 or 7 years of crisis support experience because of some of the wildfires. Our first support ever was in 2015, the Valley Fires, when one of our members, his property was completely destroyed, and he walked away with nothing but the stuff on his back. And that's really what caused us to act, because it kind of pulled on our heartstrings, and we thought we have to do something for our members when they're in these situations. And so we've been doing some fundraising around that, and specifically for this particular fire, we're doing a couple of things. We are setting up some microsites, branded, ACSA branded microsites that we're working on with United Way, the Red Cross as well. We're trying to cover all the different agencies because we know that some of you have certain preferences. But we're also working with the regions right now and trying to gather some donation links that have been established by specific communities that have been affected. Because one of the things that we have learned over the years is that members like to give, but they like to give knowing that their money is going directly to an area or families that are impacted. So look out for that information. That's going to be pushed out soon as we have the ability to gather all of that. And then the other thing is, too, we've got a web page set up on our site collecting information, contact information from previous members who have had experience losing their homes. And so it's sort of kind of a support group, so to speak, so that members can be connected to each other if they have questions about, insurance claims or how to navigate a crisis like that and how to come out ahead. That would be a good way to make sure that you get some support from a member who's actually been through it. And so look for that on our member services webpage. I'll put as soon as I'm off, I will put the link in the chat so that people can find it. And then if people want to email me directly, my email address is mcuizon, C-U-I-Z-O-N, @ACSA.org. I'll put that in the chat also. Or you can just email memberservices@ACSA.org if that's easier. And those are the ways that you can find us. So hopefully nobody will need this help, but it's there if you need it. And unfortunately, this is the time of year when members actually realize we have such a thing called crisis support. So thank you for letting me share.
No, thank you for sharing. And one of the things our team does each week is we proactively look at areas around the state where folks might need our help. And we reach out, we cold call people, and we just say, hey, look, is there anything we can do to support? And those were some of the supports that are provided now. In the past, some of the supports we provided. I know in one instance, we were able to raise, I think it was $38,000 to help one of our members rebuild their home that was lost. I've seen some of the communications being popped on the screen from the Facebook chat that some of our members have been evacuated. Some may have lost homes. And so we're here. That's the message. You are not alone. ACSA is here to support you. So let me bring in our experts tonight, experts who have lived through these experiences, and we'll let them share a bit of their experience, what they've learned, and some resources they have. And so it's my great pleasure tonight to welcome Debra Kubin, the superintendent of Ukiah Unified School District. We're also joined tonight by Tim Taylor, who was the Butte County superintendent of schools during one of the biggest, if not the biggest, wildfire in California's history. And now he has a great distinction of serving as the executive director of the Small School District Association. They're both amazing leaders. They're dear friends. And as I said, they're experts in this area. So Deb and Tim, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with something that each of you has said to me, that we are in, crazy times. Let's set the stage. What are you seeing out there in the field right now? And then we'll get into your experience and lessons learned and then in the end, we'll provide some resources to members. So Deb, share with us your thoughts. What's going on out there? What is the current climate, so to speak, in the field?
It is definitely crazy. We opened last Monday, a week ago, to distance learning in our community. And I, surrounded with lightning, thunder, rainstorms. We had a massive gas leak in our community that caused evacuations. And then all around us, we have fires. And it is completely, it was completely crazy. And it still is completely crazy. And I saw somebody from Lake County on our call right now on Facebook, and my heart goes out to all of us. Lake County and Sonoma County, we've all been hit by wildfires year after year. And so our families are traumatized, and we are dealing with smoke now. And I too have 3 kids who dealt with Zoom issues this morning. And so we just keep dealing with problem after problem. So they are definitely crazy times. I've learned a lot over the last several years, and our community definitely has been, in the last 3 years, in crisis after crisis.
Wow, Deb, and thank you for calling out the trauma as well. We've had on the show some experts in that area of trauma-informed instruction and the brain science, and really trying to help our folks realize some plans in advance of opening schools that they could implement to help students and staff. Thank you for calling that out. Tim Taylor, again, has experience on the ground with this. We'll get to that in just a minute with both of them. But Tim, you're the executive director of an association that spans the state. There are small school districts all over the state. Most school districts in the state are defined as small. How would you characterize what's going on in the field right now, Tim?
Yeah, Wes, I was on the phone today with a superintendent from Santa Cruz. And there is no playbook for this, because I think all of us that have been through other tragedies, whether it's earthquake, mudslides, fire, the evacuation of Oroville Dam, when you add in the COVID crisis and what's going on with the Black Lives Matters and all that, on top of the presidential election, on top of there is no playbook, because I cannot, as I was trying to coach somebody today who's dealing with his staff and his board who's lost their homes, I'm adding my Butte County experience, and then I'm thinking, oh my God, these people can't even go face to face and hug each other and give love, because that's the big connection between recovery. During the recovery stage, as you head into the restore stages, you want to just feel each other and get in front of those kids. And now you're stuck in a distance learning model and don't have that ability. So the playbook's out. It's like you're playing this football game, and all of a sudden you look across the way and going, oh man, everything we've worked on needs new adjustments. So it's very challenging for all the leaders to deal with this. I think all we can do is support each other, rely on each other, and give each other the love and support we need to get through that. But there's no playbook for what's currently going on. Even if you look at the campfire and other issues, this is a much, much more complicated situation we're dealing with throughout the state.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Hey, by the way, man, I saw that book behind you there, The Wine Calories Guide. I was under the impression that there are no carbs in tequila and no calories in wine. I haven't read that book.
Yeah, I had to take my cocktail sign down because I don't want you to get in trouble. But SSDA, we don't care about that. We're not as PC as you.
Hey, thanks, Tim. And I think Victor Uribe just mentioned, if it was Victor's had a couple of posts already in the chat, that air quality is another issue right now. If it's not the fires, people are impacted by the air quality. True. And let me tell you how true that is. We have relatives in Idaho that were bragging about their kids were able to play sports this fall. They just canceled those sports for a week because the air quality is so bad in Idaho, and it's from the fires in California. So that is a legitimate issue. Hey, Deb, as we think back to your experience there in Lake County, tell us about what you went through. And as you tell us the story, any of the details about how it impacted families, communications, what have you, some of the lessons that are important because you mentor other people. I will connect you, I know, with other people going through this. So what were the lessons learned? And Tim, I'm going to ask you the same thing in just a second. So Deb, kind of what was your story? What did you go through? What did you learn that people can take away from this conversation and help themselves or others?
Well, we had a fire. We serve 4 communities in Mendocino County, which is just next to Lake County. And we had a fire in one of our communities in Redwood Valley, California. And over 100, I think it was 180 homes burned. And we also had the horrible experience of losing 2 of our students in the fire. And I still get emotional thinking about everything that we went through in our small community. We serve about 6,000 students in Ukiah Unified, and it was just devastating. We also lost communication, and I live in a neighboring town, and the communication was shut off between the communities I serve and the town that I live in, as well as the highway being shut down. So it was incredibly devastating, and we obviously immediately closed, and it was my goal. Fortunately, we had been in session for 2 months, and so we already had relationships with our kids and our families, and I think about that a lot related to the fires that around us are currently experiencing, not having the benefit of having those connections with students yet, but we just nothing can prepare you for this. I cannot, all of the preparation in the world cannot prepare you, but your relationships are probably the best thing that can prepare you for something like this. Having really strong relationships in your community with people, and also your neighboring districts. We often reach out to our neighbors who are experiencing fires and offer up support. So those strong relationships that you develop, that's probably my biggest lesson learned. I don't know if I learned it, but it's what I know as a leader. Those relationships that you develop with everyone in your community, and the relationships you develop through ACSA and other places, they are invaluable during a crisis. And whatever you can do to develop them in advance will help you definitely get through a time like this. And we still deal with the trauma in our community from smoke, from fires. People were evacuated in the middle of the night. Many of them woke up to their propane tanks exploding. And so we had staff members whose homes were burned. It was a really terrible time, but we got through it with our relationships and the amazing community that we have.
Wow. No, Deb, thank you. And for our viewers down in Southern California, they're thinking propane tank, those small things you put on your barbecue, but up here, as Tim calls it, in the frontier country, they're big, and they provide heat and power for your entire home. And when they explode, it's even more significant than your barbecuer. Hey, Tim, you were in one of the biggest fires, if not the biggest to hit California in its history, and you were the county superintendent. And Tom Marmolino and I, cruised in to help support you in the command center. You had a command center. I mean, you were the county person with your team really taking this on. Tell us about that experience and some of the things you learned that you can share with others.
Yeah, I think the thing that I learned and shared today with some leaders over in Santa Cruz and also up in Nevada was you got to succumb your leadership and your ego at this point. I remember on the Sunday night, the 3rd or 4th day of the campfire, I was curled up in my room, unable to sleep, thinking I can't do this. And I got on the phone and called you, Wes, and Tom Armolino and Dave Gordon, and got help. I think we as leaders have such we have such strong egos, and we think we can do this, but you need to succumb to getting help and getting support. And what we learned, and what I learned, when you watch the firefighters, the local firefighters still make the final decisions, but they have a team of people who fly in, who have no skin in the game, whose only job is to put out the fire. And our job is to get kids back to school, and you can't do that alone. You've got to reach out for help. And for all of us that are reaching out to the various leaders throughout the state dealing with the fires and COVID and everything. We have to start jumping in the car and go and shoulder to shoulder. If Gavin Newsom can get in his car, get out to Bonnie Dunes and Davenport, then we can get off our ass and get out there and help people shoulder to shoulder. Because a phone call and a video is nice, but people need to feel that you're with them shoulder to shoulder. So my encouragement to you is to if you're mentoring somebody, and I know it's a little dangerous with the COVID, but put your mask on and get out there and really help out with that personal shoulder to shoulder work. So I think that's the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned, Deb's right. If you don't have relationships in your leadership, with your local officials, with your people, it's really going to really show in a crisis situation. That has to be done way before. And if it's fractured, it elevates itself by 10 to 100 times during a crisis, and it's very difficult. And I think the last thing, districts need to really rely hard and kind of give in some of the decision-making process to your county office, so it's a collective decision. I know it's always a delicate one, but we really took our 14 districts and our 18 charters, and we collectively made decisions as a county to do that. And Wes, sorry, one more thing, and you brought it up earlier, and don't go back to business too early without dealing with the trauma. And you can't have victims teaching victims. Get help with that trauma. Don't lower that bar and think, oh, come on, toughen up. People are really dealing with some major trauma, with fire, with post-traumatic stress, and et cetera. And it's your job as the leader not to come back to school too quickly. I was encouraging people over in Santa Cruz, don't wait till after Labor Day. If I could have done one thing different in Butte County, we came back December 8th. I should have waited till after the Christmas break, taken the 3 or 4 extra weeks. And in this situation, I think take your time coming back. Make sure your staff is fully prepared for the emotions coming back, and then you'll get back in the groove.
No, that's great stuff. And Tim, I remember you talking about get shoulder to shoulder, do the work. A little harder in COVID. You got to be safe. But you got to kind of throw out some of the rules and just get it done, right? And I remember the story of the bus drivers and some of the maintenance folks in Paradise coming down the hill, and they were told by the local authorities, you get down the hill or you won't get off the mountain, right? And they called into the superintendent and said, hey, look, there are some kids on the side of the road. They're not bus riders. We don't have a pass for them. Can we pick them up? And the superintendent said, put them in trucks. Put anyone in the bus that you see on the side of the road, get everybody off the mountain. And they saved so many lives doing so. Hey, by the way, folks that are watching, if you have questions for Deb, if you have questions for Tim, please put them in the chat. We're going to ask those in just a second. Deb, Tim just mentioned, something you'd mentioned, the trauma, the mental health aspect. You said, and I remember this, I'll never forget when you shared this with me, that you lost 2 lives in that fire. And so obviously you had to prioritize helping people heal. What were some resources for doing that? What were some of the things that you did as people all over the state right now are struggling to do the same thing?
We did a few things. One is I can't say enough about having an adequate counseling staff. And it's especially true now with COVID as well. We have staffed up counseling over the years because our families and our kiddos need it. And so we've also offered, when Lake County had some fires, we've offered up our counselors to them, because with small school districts, it's really difficult to have enough resources. The other piece that was important to us was we certainly wanted to make sure our staff was healed, but for our community, getting our kids back to school as soon as we could was really important, because we could get them vital resources. Our students were valuable resources as well, helping to bring kids back. We had a high school student who was sitting at home for 5 days, and the fire was in a neighboring community, but he was part of our our student body, and he wanted to do something. So he brought a case of water to the high school and started handing it out. It turned into this massive donation center for families. We had parents cooking and handing out food. Talk about just doing whatever you can think of. That is one example. So kids are really powerful and resilient, and relying on them during these times is really important once you get them the support that they need. So we closed down for 5 days and started bringing families and kids back so we could support them. It was very much needed in our community.
Right on. That's a great point. We all know the importance of doing that. That's why we're fighting for some of the liability protections, some of this clarity on small groups. Our kids need to be back if they can be brought back safely. Hey, Tim, you and Mary Sakuma, who is your right-hand person, who is coming in as the next county superintendent, you folks were availing districts of resources. Then and now, what are some resources you know about through your experience now at SSDA that the folks in the field could use to benefit their communities? Any resources they might look towards?
Yeah, I mean, I think CSAS has laid out some really great resources as kind of a playbook, I guess you can say, a framework. But if I was going to give you the best resources, is pick up the phone and call people that have been down this road before, because you can have the playbook and everything that's going on and go over that with your board, but pick up the phone and call people, and it's not rocket science. Call Sonoma, call Napa, call Butte County, call Mendocino, and call Trona, who went through the earthquake, or Montecito, Cold Springs went through the mudslides. That's your number one resource. They will help you. They will feel honored to support you. The resources are right on CSAS and ACSA's website. You guys all have great stuff. I think that's good for your fingertips and having some checklists. But the net to the bottom line is, as the tragedy hits, call people. And if you need help, Wes answers emails faster than anybody. I will help you. Deb will help you. But to me, I think that's the number one resource, Wes, is get to people that have been down this road. Let them help you. Let them steer you in the right direction. And there is no dumb question. A question I got today was, hey, 2 of my board members lost their house. Can they still be board members? And I said, yeah, we'll make that happen. We'll get a waiver. So I think that's the number one resource. Beyond that, for those of you that are not involved with something, it's coming. At some point, you're going to deal with a major crisis. Wes, and I think I wanted to kind of also just quickly touch on the COVID thing, because I think when we look at tragedies, you have 3 stages, right? The restore stage is getting things settled down and getting people to safe and secure environments. It's the firemen putting out the fire. In the COVID world, we can't get out of that stage. There's the restore stage is really rebuilding things, getting things back to normal, and the rebuild stage is the longest thing. So the 3 stages really in COVID, what I see is we can't get out of this stage, and it's so frustrating. It's like, think of a fire and you've got 99% of it out, right? And you're about to close the shop and move on. All of a sudden the wind picks up and it starts another fire. That's the complexity people are dealing with that crisis, right? I think we can talk about the fire one, and that's the purpose of majority. The COVID one, to me, is super complicated because it doesn't extinguish itself. It just keeps creating new problems and new fears. And I think, Wes, you're doing a damn good job, and I think everyone else is trying to support the schools. But until you can distinguish something and move to the restore and recovery stage, it's extremely stressful on our leaders. And all we can do is stick together, do our best, and wait for that vaccine to come, hopefully to really put out that full fire.
No, thanks, Tim. And hey, everybody watching this now or recorded, if you know somebody that needs support, my email is wsmith@acsa.org. I connect people with Deb because she's gone through this, folks in Sonoma, folks in Napa, Bart Bernemko, the superintendent there. We've worked to connect people and others. I connect you with Tim and SSDA. They have great resources. Get a hold of me so we can connect folks. Look, last thing, besides thanking you for giving up your evenings to help our colleagues, I've been through the fires with you, with both of you. You've called me, or I've been there. We've worked on things together, and as grave as situations have been, you have been resolved, resolute. You have stood strong, and you have supported people, and then you've helped people heal afterwards. I want you to know that the two of you and colleagues like you give me hope. That no matter what is thrown at us, people like you exist all over the state. And that's why our students and their loved ones have a fighting chance. That's why they will be successful. So thank you. Let me ask you, last question. Deb first, and then Tim, what gives you hope, right? There is hope all around us. What reservoir of hope do you draw upon, Deb?
Well, and especially during the fires, we tried to celebrate every great thing that was going on in our community, and we're still doing the same thing during COVID. We're trying to find really great work that's going on to be able to share it with our community so it gives them some hope. Because as Tim was talking about the different stages, it's hard to get past the first stage when there's not an end right now. And so just looking for the good stuff and celebrating it, I think, is the best way to, for me personally, keep my hope for my future and future of education in our community, and then also to give it to our community. There are so many great people doing such great work in the state of California, and we just need to celebrate that so we can give people hope.
Thank you. Tim, same question, man. What gives you hope?
I don't know why I always got to follow her, man. Can I go first once? Never mind. No, listen, I think two things give me hope right off the bat. One is I'm so excited about how teachers and our organizations are open sourcing great things. I've always waited for the day when teachers share their best lessons and open up their doors to share that. And I've seen so many unbelievable sharing of great instruction, leadership, and everything else. And I think our associations have really worked together well, CSBA, CASBO, CSS, and everybody, and opened that up. And then I think the other thing, and I'm not trying to butter up to Wes because he beats me in golf every time, but Wes, SSDA has been able to move up into the higher echelon of decision making and support our rurals, and I've been so impressed how you take on the governor and the state superintendent on behalf of kids. I think we are constantly in this pro-labor friendly world that focus on the adults, and you're the only person I see that mans up or women's up and speaks on behalf of the kids when we're in these very difficult discussions with Newsom's group and Thurman's group. And everyone at ACSA should be proud. Wes sometimes, he puts his foot in his mouth, but it's always on behalf of kids. And it's very, once you guys get behind the curtain and watch what Wes does for this state, it's really impressive. And I don't say that lightly. I really love the fact that you stay focused on the kids. So I think the hope is there's leadership at important levels like you and Deb and I and others that are only focused on the kids and doing what's best for them.
Oh, thanks. And to both of you, thank you. Some people have commented that it's inspirational to see folks that have been through it, and you've been through it. I've seen you when you were curled up in a ball, so to speak, and here you are sharing hope, sharing resources. We will get through this collectively and collaboratively. So Deb, Tim, thank you so much. We're here to support you and work with you. Tim, you know that, and Deb, you know that as well. And to our members, thanks for tuning in. Again, we didn't schedule this tonight, but we felt like there were folks in need. Whenever there are members, educators, students, and families that are in need, we're going to turn on the computers and the lights. We're going to broadcast and try to provide some support. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week on Common Purpose, Uncommon Times. Have a safe week.